I create a lot of rules for myself, and I think there are 5 key areas where it makes sense to go above and beyond and pay for a luxury item or a premium brand in 5 areas of my EDC. Actually, I've got 5 areas here I want to go through today, and one thing that will probably drive some of you crazy in terms of where I think it's worth spending money on. So in this video, I'm going to go through those 5 key items that I think are worth spending the extra money on. I'm going to tell you what my pick is in with each category and why I spent that kind of money on it, or what I spent for those things. And I fully understand that this is going to annoy some people and they're going to think that I'm absolutely crazy for doing that. So let's get started. How's it going, folks? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here on this channel, I talk about technology, EDC, and anything that can help you live a happier, balanced, more productive life. So let's get started on the 5 categories. The 5 areas I think it's worth to spend money on a premium product are your watch, your wallet, your pocket knife, a pen, and a way to organize your keys. Now I've got one bonus item at the end, which I definitely know a lot of you will disagree with, but we'll get to that in a minute. So let's get stuck in. First and foremost, I think we need to define what I mean by a luxury item or a premium product. And that for me is when you're spending typically 10 times more than you can buy something for cheaply. So an example, and this is not one of my 5, an example might be if you're looking for a lighter, spending the money on a cheap $1 Bic lighter, which is perfect. These are absolutely great. This has gotten a little extended, what do they call it, shoots on them, which means you won't burn yourself, versus buying something like a Zippo lighter, which you're going to buy for $20, $30, $40, $50, depending on the type of Zippo that it is. Which is it worth doing? They both do the same thing, they both create fire, they both light things, but having a premium product might make you feel differently or better about that product. So while I do own Zippo lighters and I actually love using them, I've got a bunch of different lighters, it's not one of the areas where I think it's worth spending the absolute premium on. It's not in my top 5. So let's get stuck into the top 5 that I do have. So the first and foremost, the most premium product I have is my watch. So in this category, you could absolutely buy a Casio Illuminator. This is my own one that I've owned for, I don't know, 30 years. It's a fantastic little watch. I like it a lot. It does a great job of telling the time. In fact, you know what? It does a better job of telling the time than the watch that I'm actually going to tell you about as my premium product. This watch is waterproof. It lights up at nighttime. It's much easier to see than my other watch at nighttime. It never forgets the date. I don't have to change the date every month. I don't have to wind it. The battery lasts on it, I don't know, 10 years, something like that. And they're largely indestructible. And if it is destroyed, or if it does get damaged, I can just buy another one for about $20. So these watches are fantastic, made in the 80s, and I absolutely love it. However, I do think it's worth spending premium in this category. And for this, I've got a Rolex Submariner. So I bought this Rolex Submariner in 2010. I had just come into some money. I had won an award for some of the work that I was doing, and I wanted to get something notable that would help me remember that occasion. And this is the watch that I've always wanted ever since I was a kid. The kind of James Bond classic luxury watch that you can have on your wrist. And to me, it meant success. So let's talk about price. This, at the moment, is probably a $20,000 watch. I bought it for a lot less money back in 2010, but it was still a lot of money back at that time, and I've had it all of this time. So for me, this watch means a number of different things. One, it reminds me of the success I had, or that hard work pays off, and that if you put in the hard yards, you can achieve some of the goals or attain some of the things that you wanted to achieve. But more than that, I think it's an absolutely classic look. When I have this watch on my wrist, I typically wear it to special occasions these days. I used to wear it every day. In fact, for 10 years I wore it every day, whether I was working on motorcycles, going into the office, everything I did I had this watch on. But there has been a bit of a cultural change here. I live in San Francisco, and lately a lot of people have been getting mugged or having their watches aggressively taken from them. So I'm very careful about where I wear this watch these days, because it is very noticeable and you are putting yourself at risk wearing it, unfortunately. That's just kind of the situation we're in here. So what are some of the downsides of this? So comparing it to my $20 counterpart, you have to wind it. You have to wind this watch. It's kinetic, so when you wear it on your wrist, it will stay up to date, but you do need to wind it every now and then. Or if you take it off like I do for periods of time, you have to wind it and recharge the spring on it to be able to make it go. I think that's a benefit. I think that a watch that works well and charges and gets energy from your body's natural energy, I think that's fantastic. And I think there's something symbiotic and an extension of you that it kind of inserts in the watch that you don't get from a digital watch. Second, you have to change the date, you have to change the time. This has got a fantastic mechanism in it. The Rolex watch is renowned for having fantastic mechanisms, and they're also renowned for losing time or gaining time every day. So at the end of any one week, you could have gained or lost anywhere between 1 and 5 minutes within their normal tolerance. And so I think having a watch like this is something that you have to care for and really take care of. There's a real weight to this watch. So when I put this watch on, I know I'm carrying it, I know I'm wearing it. Other watches are much lighter. Even my Apple Watch Ultra, while it's a heavy watch, it's much heavier than the Casio, is nothing like the kind of weight from this Rolex Submariner. But this is really going into the kind of ultra luxury premium brand as far as I'm concerned. It's the most premium thing I earn within any one category. There is a middle ground that I'd recommend. For a long time in my 20s, I wore this Tag Heuer Professional. Now it's a much smaller watch face than I typically wear today. At the time I paid about €500 for this, whereas this watch was €5,000. So it was 10 times cheaper than this watch, still 10 times more expensive than this watch. So a good middle ground if you want to have a really classic watch. I would really consider looking at the Tag Heuer range of watches, or within that price range. If you're not quite ready to jump into an ultra premium watch, but you still want something really nice that does have a wind mechanism, or it has that much more personal feel to it, there's other options out there. But for me, the ultimate watch, and honestly the only premium watch I really ever want to own, is this Rolex Submariner. So moving on to the next category for me is another area where I've spent probably too much money for some people on something that I really enjoy using, but that is with my fountain pen. So you can get a perfectly good fountain pen, and this is a fountain pen I use most days. It's the Lamy Safari. I use this when I'm doing morning pages, taking notes, journaling. It's a beautiful little writer. It's got a medium nib on it. In fact, I've got a bunch of them in different colors, different color outsides representing the ink that I have inside in them. It's easy to change the ink. It's just a cartridge. You unscrew the capsule on the top, plop in another cartridge, and you're ready to go again. I've never had one of these leak on me. I keep them in my pocket and I trust them all the time. And it's not a premium product, so I'm not worried about someone stealing it. If they do, I'm down $20 and I can buy another one of these again. But talking about premium is where I use this Montblanc Meisterstück. So this is the Montblanc Meisterstück, and I think it's Le Petit Prince, which is the Little Prince. That sounds so pretentious. Even saying it sounds pretentious because it's hard to say. So I decided to buy this pen, I want to say 5 years ago. I bought it because I've always really wanted one. And there's occasions when you sign things where it's kind of a moment in your life. Like when you buy your house, when you're signing the deeds on the house, I use this pen to sign that. I've got a photograph doing it somewhere. I'll try and stick it in if I can find it. You know, things like signing your house, writing letters to friends. If you do sit down, you know, it's such a rare occasion that you do write a letter to someone to say thank you, or to pen a note to someone these days. I like to sit there with a piece of paper and make an occasion of it. Also, I insist on using, you can get cartridges for these devices, but I insist on using the filler where you have to dip the nib in and use the ink to suck the ink up into it, and the whole rigmarole around filling this. This is really old school and premium when you're using this pen. The materials, they call, you know, they're a resin, and they say that they're premium elite materials, and it's inlaid with silver and platinum and different things like that to try and make it seem like it's worth the value, but the truth is it's just a premium product. But this is all about how these items make you feel when you use them. And for me, I was able to afford it, and it was something that I really treasure. I would be very upset if somebody stole it, and I think it's really great having a premium item like that. Does it write better than the Safari? I actually think it does. It's got a nicer nib, and I certainly enjoy using it more, but the Lamy Safari does 99% of what this does, so you really are paying a premium for it, but for me, I think it's worth it for the whole experience. I just want to take a quick pause from the video to ask you to like and subscribe to this video if you're enjoying this content. I've got a very small channel, and you liking this helps the algorithm find me. Okay, back to the content. Moving on from that, I think I'm going to switch into a different category, and that's paying premium for the pocket knife that you carry. So again, you could absolutely carry, what I've got here is the Husky just box cutter. I think this was $7 for example, or maybe it was $9. I use it all the time. You can see it's pretty trashed. I use it for opening boxes. I do carry it in my pocket sometimes when I'm doing some jobs around the house. I don't mind bashing it around. The blade is interchangeable. I really can't go wrong with this thing. If I lose it, I don't care. I can just buy another one. If the blade breaks, I can change the blade. There's a lot of advantages to this knife over a premium knife for that very reason. But for me, I think it's worth spending the money and buying something you really love. And for me, this is the Benchmade 940. Now, when I first saw this knife, I'm not a very big tactical knife person. This is with the green scales and the purple inlay. At first, I wasn't so sure about it. But the more, when I felt it in my hand, when I opened and closed it, the mechanism for me is absolutely beautiful on it. It's the best knife I've ever owned. Now, it's a little bit long for me in the pocket, and they do make the 940 Mini, the Osborne 940 Mini, which I've done a review on, the comparison between this and the Mini before, and I actually carry the Mini more often because it's less intimidating as a blade. But when I talk about loving using something, when I talk about having a really premium product, I see this Benchmade as that. I'm never going to bash this around. These are strong blades. I've seen people punch these through hoods on cars and things like that to test them out. I don't know why you need that, but they really are great knives. It's got S30V steel on it. It's balanced beautifully, so if you put it on the end of your finger, you can see the hinge there. It's balanced nicely on that hinge, and everything about it screams premium to me. So I bought this knife, I think it was over $200 when I bought it. I think it was about $250. So again, it puts it in the premium product compared to what you could get for your cheap option. But if you've got a knife in your pocket that you really love and that, or you use it kind of for special occasions, I'm not going to be carrying this with suits or when I'm dressed up. It's not that kind of knife. It's not luxury in that way, but it is expensive and it is premium. And to me, it brings me joy every time I use it. So for me, it's worth it. So let's stick in a bonus item here, just a controversial one, just to drive you all a little bit crazy. Now, I understand lots of you are going to say that a watch is not worth it, or you're absolutely crazy spending $500 on a pen when you could just have a biro or just a standard Lamy Safari. But this one is this is definitely an area where I think I'm going to upset some people. So this is, for me, is tools. And tools in general, I have a big tool habit. I've got a workshop. I like to work on motorcycles, and I like to have the right tool for the job. But I'm using this tool as an example of tools in general. Now, what I have here is a DeWalt screwdriver. It's got an interchangeable head, and I've got this little pack of bits that comes with them that's quite typical, so you can change it to a flat head or a Phillips head, or it's really, really robust. Had this for a very, very long time, and it does what you'd expect a screwdriver to do. However, I want to compare that to this. This is Linus from Tech Tips' screwdriver that he created, where he's entirely over-engineered the screwdriver, and I have to say I absolutely love it. The clicking motion, I think, is fantastic. He's got it just right. There's no play in it. I love how it looks, and he's put these little mini tools. Other things that drive people crazy is he's reinvented the wheel. He's created new, slightly smaller mini heads to fit in the top of this screwdriver. And when I first saw that, I thought that's absolutely insane. But you know what? I love using this. And if I'm doing something, if I'm working on a PC, if I'm doing a PC build, or if I'm doing some light work, I'm doing some sockets or outlets or things like that, I will always reach for this. Now, this is a $70 item compared to, I don't know, $12 item. So it's definitely in the luxury item part. And this is going to be one that divides people, because this is, you're overpaying definitely here because you're buying it from a YouTuber or influencer, but the quality of the product is outstanding. It brings me joy. So for me, it falls into that category. But I've got a bunch of other tools. You could argue that Leatherman is like that. Any of those Leatherman multi-tools fits into that category of somewhere between a pocket tool or a utility device that you're paying a premium for because it brings you joy and it's really high quality. So moving on to the last two sections. So second last section for me is key organization. So of course you could buy just rings. You can get a little box of these key rings that you can stick your keys on, and they do a fantastic job. Keep your keys in your pocket. You can do that for $1. But in this section, I've pulled out the Orbit key. So Orbit key creates these key organizers in a bunch of different styles and colors, and I love them. Here I've got the Boba Fett special edition they did for Star Wars. They've got Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader. They've got a bunch of those. Here's a more classic leather one. This is the one I use if I am going out, if I'm wearing a suit and I'm putting on a tie, or if I'm being classy and I don't want to wear my usual keys on my belt clipped on my carabiner. If you're interested in key rings and how obsessed I am or how anal I am about those, I have a separate video on those and you can watch that here. But here, this Orbit key is about $90, and I think it's absolutely worth it to put your keys in one of these Orbit key carriers just for the premium of having it in your pocket. If you're not someone who likes to go through their keys and organize them as insanely as I have, or you just like to have your keys organized, that they don't make noise, that they're comfortable in your pocket, I can't recommend these things enough. And I think spending money on your keychain, given that keys are things that you have on you all the time, I think it's really well worth it. So for me, a premium product for sure, not crazy expensive, but worth it in terms of what you get in terms of your key organization for something you have with you all the time. And this brings me on to the last section that I think it's worth spending your money on, and that's your wallet. Your wallet is with you all the time. Maybe less so as we use electronic payments more these days with your phone or your watch using Apple Pay, etc. But I really like having a premium wallet with me. Now the example I have here is a wallet that I've carried with me for 8 years now. And this is a wallet, this might break the rules a little bit because I've had various premium wallets, like I've had Mont Blanc wallets and I've had Paul Smith wallets in the past. I used to love my Paul Smith wallet, but I decided to make myself a wallet 8 years ago. And I used laser cutters and I designed this wallet myself and made it exactly the way that I want it. It took me a lot of time and effort. It didn't take me a lot in terms of dollars, but to buy something like this and to create a custom wallet like this would cost me a lot of money. So I don't know if it bends the rules or not, you decide, but this is my perfect wallet, and it's perfect because it's designed by me, made by me, and it does everything I needed to do and nothing beyond that. But what I would say is I totally understand when people do spend money on wallets. That's another area where I could see it being a premium or luxury item because it's something you have with you all the time. It becomes an extension of you, and it's worth it in the end. Anyway, I knew this video was going to drive some people crazy. What are some of the places where you think it's okay to spend on a premium or luxury item? And what are the things you think I've got totally wrong and I should make better use of my money? I'd love to hear from you. Stick it in the comments below. Good luck.